The Godzilla franchise is sprawling, and given just how many goddamn movies there are, fans tend to categorize them into a few different groups, mostly in relation to their corresponding era in Japanese history, but not always. I've talked about it before on my channel, but the first 15 movies are the Showa series, the next 7 are the Heisei, the next 6 are the Millennium,
and so on and so forth.
But ever since I started making videos, there's been one thing I've been dying to talk about: the Heisei Godzilla movies. 7 films released from 1984 to 1995, all sharing tight continuity. Now, the Heisei series has a bit of a complicated reputation among the fan base, I'd say. Some people love them religiously, some people think they're massively overrated. Personally, my feelings are a little more nuanced. They hold a special place in my heart, but I still think their flaws are worth discussing. And that's why I've wanted to talk about them for so long. Hell, I almost made this exact video over a year ago for this movie's 40th anniversary, but stuff got in the way, you know how it is. But there's no better place to start this series than with the beginning, with the return of Godzilla. Nowadays, I think most people, when asked about what Godzilla does, will say that he just beats the shit out of other kaiju, namely King Kong, even though he really doesn't do it that often. But barring Godzilla 98, the films where he doesn't fight another monster are usually the highest regarded. I don't think I need to really talk about the significance of the original from 1954, since it spawned 37 sequels and counting. But Shin and Minus One each won several Japanese Academy Awards, with Minus One even managing to break into the mainstream enough to win an American Academy Award.
And the Oscar goes to... Here you go. This is Godzilla.
And then there's Return of Godzilla. Released in 1984 as simply Godzilla, and for my own convenience I'll probably stick to just calling it 84. It was the first Goji movie in almost 10 years. Bit of a tangent, but I imagine anyone who's seen the newer Scream movies will know what a requel is. Halfway between reboot and sequel. A franchise movie that ignores previous entries and is only a sequel to the original film, sometimes one of the other sequels if people like it enough. Candyman did it, Terminator, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, fucking Leprechaun. Halloween did it twice for some reason, and Godzilla did it like every year for half a decade. But this is the blueprint. Only 54 is canon to 84, and 84's 6 sequels are consistent in their continuity most of the time. But even then, 84 is still kind of a black sheep. Remember when I said this subseries is called Heisei? Well, it's named after the era in Japanese history that the movies came out in, like the Showa series and the current Reiwa, which is a whole other can of worms. The problem with this is that the Heisei era didn't start until 1989, almost 5 full years after 84 came out. And then there's the issue of the Heisei era lasting until 2019, with several other Goji movies in between. So to rectify this, some people choose to call it the Versus series, since every movie has a big old VS in the title. Again, except for 84, there's just no winning. Anyway, the question remains, why isn't 84 as beloved as those other 3? Well, the simple answer is it's just not quite as good. They're all thematically rich and have lovable characters, and 84 really tries. In case you're unfamiliar, 84's plot doesn't really break the mold too much. It starts with some guys on a boat getting decimated by Godzilla a la 54, and the rest of it follows scientists and the government throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, a la basically every other Goji movie. The characters are a bit of a mixed bag, which is unfortunately a hallmark of this era. The closest we really get to a main character is this guy, Goro Maki, and I find him baffling. Probably the least important, but number one for me, his name. Again, for those who don't know, the name Goro Maki is weirdly all over this franchise. 1967, Son of Godzilla, main character is a journalist named Goro Maki. 1984, Return of Godzilla, kinda sorta not really main character, journalist named Goro Maki. 2016, Shin Godzilla, random scientist guy we never meet but is still somehow plot relevant, Goro fucking Maki. I don't understand the trend, but at this point, why stop? Anyway, this Goro Maki is a reporter, and there's a lot of different directions you can go with that, and they kind of do a lot with him while still doing nothing at all. So Goro is the guy that stumbles across the wreck of the boat Godzilla, I guess just kind of spooked at the beginning. It's like he probably didn't do much given how the boat's still relatively intact. And I guess the crew were all killed by these irradiated sea lice that Godzilla had on him, which is a choice. Anyway, Goro finds the ship, gets some radioactive jizz on his hands, makes a pretty decent Psycho reference, all things considered, and finds the sole survivor of the incident and only witness to Godzilla, this guy, Okamura. Blah blah blah, Goro calls in some help, goes back home to write a story, only for it to be blocked from publication by the government since they don't want to cause a panic.
But why keep it secret?
The monster is Godzilla. That's why.
Godzilla!
And this is where Goro starts to lose me. He's basically given a busy work assignment to interview this Professor Hayashida guy about Godzilla. I don't know why, since he just got an article blocked for talking about Godzilla. I feel like the government won't like this either. But Goro just so happens to run into Okamura's sister, Naoko, who is under the impression that Okamura is dead, or at the very least still missing. So they do a walk and talk where I guess they get to know each other. I don't know because it was mostly off screen. And he lets slip that Okamura is alive and even tells her where to find him, which she isn't supposed to know because of the government, but he makes a good case that she deserves to know.
It's unforgivable that the government here shouldn't even let his own sister know he's alive. He's being kept in isolation. And there's a total news blackout. But I can't understand why they keep it from you. I feel you should know.
Except all of that's a lie because he just did it to get a good picture for the paper. Which again, how is this allowed to go to print? So now there's tension between the three of them and Goro kind of loses all agency for a bit. Like Hayashida's working on a plan to kill Godzilla with the help of the siblings, and Goro is still allowed in for whatever reason. And he doesn't even really do anything. He doesn't do much for his news story. He doesn't really help them with their work. He doesn't even really interact with anybody. He just kind of sits there and is periodically made to feel like shit. But I guess Goro redeems himself by protecting Naoko in the final act. Maybe. So Hayashida and Okamura have flown off to enact their plan, and Naoko and Goro are left to escape a collapsing building in the middle of Godzilla's rampage. And I really love this concept, but it doesn't really amount to much, partly because both of them have the combined personality of a tape dispenser, but also because the only problems they run into are Goro cutting himself trying to open a door and then rappelling down a mangled staircase with the help of a weird homeless guy who I don't understand why is in the movie at all, let alone why he has multiple scenes. And then these two walk off into the sunset because they're in love or something. I don't know, they had one sort of tender moment together when they thought they were about to die, which I guess makes them soulmates. And unfortunately, that's kind of it as far as characters go. Okamura and Naoko don't do anything. Hayashida has sort of a tragic backstory. His parents were killed in Godzilla's first attack. But he's so laser focused on defeating Goji that he never really has a moment to be an actual character. Like, he's not unlikable or anything, he just never gets a chance to shine.
It's not quite right. I'm not gonna kill it. Didn't you feel something for him? There are many stories around how monsters appear in times of calamity. Godzilla is a warning, and I'm just trying to send him back home. That's all.
But any scene that doesn't have those guys in it is largely just the government floundering about. The Prime Minister is the one you spend the most time with, and all you really find out is that he doesn't want to nuke his country. It would be weird if he did. It reminds me a lot of Shin Godzilla. Every other country is prepared to nuke Japan without a second thought, and the Japanese have to find another way. They even have the little text cards introducing all the government characters. The main difference between the two is that Shin is way more nuanced. In Shin, you only ever hear America's demands through the Japanese characters spreading the word and reacting. And when you do see the Americans, they're shown to be more sympathetic to Japan's plight, but still set in their ways. In 84, the Americans and Soviets are front and center, and they're just constantly yelling and screaming about how much they want to fucking nuke Japan. Because yeah, given it's 1984, this is also a Cold War movie. But it's also not all that interested in being a Cold War movie. Before the final act, the only times the Soviets or Americans are involved at all are in the long screaming matches about killing Godzilla, and a bit where Godzilla destroys the Russian sub. They barely even engage with the topic, and when they do, it's all surface level stuff. But the final act is where it all either comes together or falls apart. It depends how far you can suspend your disbelief. Either way, it's kinda bonkers. So Godzilla's been rampaging in Tokyo for a while, and the government deploys their latest secret weapon, the Super X.
We can use the Super X.
The X makes it sound cool.
And shockingly, the Super X is actually successful. 9 times out of 10, the government's efforts to defeat Godzilla failed miserably. Like earlier in this movie, the fighter planes do jack shit. This is legitimately kind of groundbreaking. You hear Godzilla's heart stop. That is unheard of. But despite Godzilla kind of being dead, there's still 28 minutes left. And apparently the Soviets have a satellite with a nuke trained directly on Tokyo, even though Godzilla wasn't actually there yet at the time of launch, but whatevs. And their command ship with the controls to it is in Japan, exactly where Godzilla makes landfall, and his first order of business is fucking up that boat. So the boat being rocked fucks up the controls and the nuke gets launched, and America's plan to fix it is to send their best rocket stock footage and shoot down the nuke with another nuke, which is an insane gamble, but by some fucking miracle, it works. Albeit with the unintended side effect of creating a radioactive lightning storm in space that strikes Godzilla and resurrects him, sending him back out on his rampage. But that's when we get back to Hayashida's plan to stop Goji, which I guess is slightly less crazy, but still insane. So Hayashida theorizes that Godzilla is attracted to the sound of seagulls because of some magnetic area in his nose or something.
It's magnetism. Like a radar. Migratory birds have it as well. Like a guiding light.
I don't know, this is never brought up again outside this movie, so I guess it doesn't matter. So his idea is to play the frequency Goji's attracted to on a big speaker at the top of a volcano. Naturally, he tests it first when Godzilla's right outside his window, because he is a smart man. But Godzilla goes to the volcano, and Hayashida just fucking blows it the hell up, trapping Godzilla inside. Peak fiction. I don't really have much to say about it, but I can't make a video on this movie without bringing it up. There's an American cut of this, and I don't just mean a re-edit like so many other Goji movies, I mean they added in extra scenes with an American cast. It's called Godzilla 1985, and besides it being an inferior experience to just watching the original version, there isn't much of note about it, except for 1. There's a really egregious Dr. Pepper product placement. They had tie-in commercials outside the movie. I don't know why they felt the need to make the movie itself a commercial. 2. In the Japanese version, there's this one Soviet guy that is struggling to stop the nuke from being launched at Japan. And the American version changes the subtitles so that he's actually struggling to launch the nuke.
The government, in its infinite wisdom, has decided not to use nuclear weapons.
Because this is fucking America! The only good commie is a dead commie.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
3. Raymond Burr was in the American cut of 54, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, ! And he returns here playing the same character, Steve Martin.
Martin, you are Mr. Steve Martin?
Yes? Who are you? Name is Martin.
However, he's only called Mr. Martin in this one because, yeah.
That cat was the best fuck I ever had.
And I actually find his inclusion kind of interesting because Raymond Burr is the only American taking this seriously in any way. And he actually has a pretty decent monologue at the end.
The reckless ambitions of man are often dwarfed by their dangerous consequences. For now, Godzilla, that strangely innocent and tragic monster, has gone to Earth. Whether he returns or not, or is never again seen by human eyes, the things he has taught us remain.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense given Godzilla was never at any point shown to be sympathetic in this movie, but whatever, it's still nice. You might not be able to tell, but I do actually really enjoy 84. I've done nothing but complain about it up until now, but pretty much as always, they're all nitpicks. I can get past them because the rest of the movie is pretty entertaining. And 84 has something that a lot of other Goji movies sorely lack. atmosphere. There are hardly any scenes set in the day after the first act, which some people might not like, but I think really adds to it. Godzilla's rampage in Tokyo is well lit, so you can still see everything happening despite the darkness, unlike some of the MonsterVerse movies. And the lighting is very cold for most of it, which really contrasts with the red sky when Godzilla's resurrected, which is gorgeous. And the fog during Godzilla's attack on the nuclear plant is suitably eerie. It's a little silly that no one noticed Godzilla arrive until he's right in front of them, but I give it a pass because it's a cool sequence. And honestly, it's kind of shocking that this and GXK are the only movies that actually show Godzilla consuming radiation, although here he's just absorbing it into his body instead of the reverse atomic breath. But one of my favorite sequences is Godzilla's attack on the Russian submarine, where you really don't see him until the final shot, and even then, just his hands.
Enemy target is approaching rapidly. We must assume from its speed that it's going to attack us.
The Russians are doing their regular thing. They get a little blip on the radar. They try to subdue it. It's ineffective. All you get is the ambient music and sounds. The tension keeps building as the Russians try to kill the unseen threat without panicking. And then... Godzilla destroys them in an instant. It's awesome. I think I'm just a sucker for submarine sequences. I don't know how many of you have seen those last two Mission Impossibles, but both of them have really great submarine set pieces. They absolutely fucking rip. But something else that really elevates Godzilla's attacks, especially his raid on the city, are the effects. I know to some people they look a little dated. This shot of Godzilla's foot squishing the camera looks especially terrible. Why is it illuminated? But given a lot of the previous and subsequent Goji movies, you can tell they poured a lot more of the budget into the miniatures. Like, they built all these buildings and destroyed them. Granted, they do that in all these movies, but look how fucking big they are. They're bigger than a man, any man. It's insane. These aren't even miniatures anymore, they're fucking bigatures. Which is a real thing, look it up. I'm also a huge fan of the Godzilla design here. They change it up in the next movie, largely sticking to it going forwards, and it is probably more iconic. Hell, -1's version is basically just a retextured Bio Goji with different spines and proportions. But I think 84 Goji deserves some love too. It's interesting, there are kind of two different Godzilla designs in this movie. The suit and the mechanical large-scale bust for close-ups. The Cybot, as they call it. Now the Cybot is kind of terrifying. Why is he so fucking tall? But it's also got an entirely different face. It's got way longer teeth and a way more bulbous snout. The suit has short teeth with notable fangs, stubbier snout, and his eyes are going off in different directions. Something about him I just find adorable. He's a little cutie patootie. I also appreciate that they updated the roar to sound a little more animalistic. They kind of stick to it in the sequels, but they eventually revert back to the old one. But I think most people will agree that the absolute best part of this movie is the score by Reijiro Kuroku. I am upset that they never brought him back for any other Goji movies. He's better than half the other composers this franchise has used. And he never uses the original Akira Ifukube theme. It's entirely original, aside from this one moment that sounds kinda similar. His score really enhances the mood of every scene. My favorite is the opening title. I think it might be the best non-Ifukube piece of music in this entire franchise. The incidental music throughout also just adds so much to the atmosphere. Just listen to it. I also appreciate how bombastic the Super X theme is. There's a lot of military march music in this franchise and they all kind of blend together at a certain point. But Super X has a certain energy that the others just don't have. Now the ending theme is kind of odd to me. It's wonderfully done, it's very melancholic, but again, Godzilla was never shown to be sympathetic at any point. He was actively killing people just for shits and giggles. But I digress. It's an amazing piece of music, and I think a very nice note to end the movie on, too. The Return of Godzilla doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. The rest of the Heisei series are all way more fantastical, with mad scientists, mechagodzillas, space Godzillas, crab, Satan, actual fucking time travel. 84 kinda gets lost in the shuffle. It's by no means a perfect film, but it is one of my comfort movies. I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but it just feels so cozy to me. But of course, the story doesn't end here. There's 6 more movies in this series, most of which don't really circle back to 84 very much after Biollante. One of them actually kind of retcons 84, except maybe it doesn't, so it's kind of up for debate, but officially it does, but it makes way more sense if it doesn't. It's the time travel one, it's a fucking mess, we'll get to it. But when will we get to it? I don't know. I have a lot to say about the next movie, plus this video got delayed by an actual fucking year, so I cannot begin to speculate. And YouTube doesn't like older movies like these, so I don't even know how well this video will do. But I hope you enjoyed, whatever this was. And Toho, please don't copyright strike this video.